going to get traded. Myles Garrett has requested a trade. Mock drafts galore. Free agency is going to be here before you know it. They only play 4 or 5 months out of the year, but they are just constantly on our minds, and I kind of love it.
Yeah, the news cycle never seems to end, right? Like there's a month maybe in mid-June to mid-July where it goes a little bit quiet. But yeah, for the most part, if you're a fan, there's always something to dream about, always something to think about, always something to kind of get your hopes up. And whether it's a mock draft or a potential trade or free agency coming up, and you know what? You don't have to be a mathematician to figure out what your team can and can't do.
Yeah, let's talk about this mock draft from ESPN's Matt Miller that came out today. First of all, he did a 2-round mock. I'm a fan of the 2-round mock because I think it gives you a bigger peek inside your favorite team's needs. Is 2 too long? I think 7's too long.
I like the 7. I like to see who somebody's got going at 248.
Yeah. I wonder how many of those have been right in the history of mock drafts. I would guess
I think 2 is about fine.
0.01%. Yeah, 2's
fine.
2 to me is okay, you've got my attention. And the reason I brought this up is because Matt Miller had the Broncos going tight end, then running back in the first 2 rounds.
Okay.
I think that's going to make Broncos country happy if that's the way it actually pans out.
Yes. I mean, 2 positions of need. Probably, if you were putting them in order, probably their biggest positions of need. I think tight end, there's just a dearth of talent in that room. Running back, pretty close. I think you can maybe talk yourself into, I want to see what they have in Audric Estime. Like you can maybe talk yourself into it a little bit more than the tight end room. But yeah, that's the way they need to go.
Well, and so let me do a few things here as I preface this for you, okay? So first of all, Tyler Warren is going off the board to 14 or at 14 to the Indianapolis Colts.
Okay, I've seen that multiple places. That seems like a given.
So it's not Tyler Warren, it's Colston Loveland from the Michigan Wolverines. Loveland's a good player, don't get me wrong, but James, 3 years at Michigan, 117 catches, 1,150 yards, 11 touchdowns. So those aren't sort of eye-popping, oh my gosh, I'm going to go dance in the street type numbers, because that's over a combined 3 seasons, caught 11 touchdowns and a little north of 1,100 yards. I like Loveland, don't get me wrong, but boy, oh boy, is this the Brock Bowers effect. If the Broncos take him at number 20, that would have felt like a reach for a tight end as early as 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It reeks of Noah Fant, doesn't it?
Yeah, similar numbers at Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, but a guy that, boy, he had all the measurables, and we talked ourselves into, get him in the right offense, and and all the rest of that stuff, but just a lack of production. Certainly looked the part in terms of size and speed and everything else. So it does worry me a little bit. Like Brock Bowers was universally, everybody's like, this guy's can't miss. He's going to be a great player. He goes at 13 last year to the Raiders. It hasn't really changed it a lot though, because I mean the best tight end in this draft, according to this mock, is going at 14.
Right,
kind of the same spot.
Warren has generational type skills, I think. I haven't heard anyone say that about Loveland. It just seems like a big difference between the two players for one of them to go at 14 and the other to go at 20 at the same position. It feels like to me that Colston Loveland probably would have been a 2nd or a 3rd round pick, again, very recently.
It feels like a reach. It feels like you're drafting for need as opposed to just taking the best player. And I think they have enough needs that unless it's a left tackle, a quarterback, I mean, even an edge rusher, you can never have enough. And even cornerback, it's like, well, you could use an upgrade opposite Pat Surtain. There's not a position outside of quarterback or left tackle that I think the Broncos couldn't upgrade and don't have a need. So I was on last week, a couple of days with Stoke, and I'm like, yeah, does it excite me that a couple of mocks have him taking a safety? Well, no, but if that safety turns into Troy Polamalu or Ed Reed or Steve Atwater or is here for a decade and a generational player, I'd be fine with it. They have two safeties that are fine. Just don't reach and take a tight end at 20 because you desperately need a tight end. We've been down that road with Noah Fant.
Well, and Michigan tight end, it wasn't his fault necessarily, but Jake Butt as well didn't work out in a Broncos uniform. Again, he suffered that catastrophic injury that we all felt really bad about because it killed his draft stock, and then it ultimately killed his NFL career as well. Let's go to round 2, and this is where Matt Miller from ESPN is doing a 2-round mock, and thinks the Broncos will take Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa. James, I can't say I watched a lot of Iowa football this year, but my goodness, Caleb Johnson. Yeah, I know Ashton Jeanty put up video game numbers. These aren't that crazy far behind. 1,537 yards and 21 touchdowns. That's a big year in the college game, especially at a program that historically can't score any points.
Yeah, I was going to say, doesn't Iowa normally average like 8 points a game?
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that. I mean, I like the two positions they're looking at. I think you're bringing in two guys that in the first round and the second round right there that should be day one, week one starters, right? Like if Caleb Johnson doesn't come in here and start, then we'd be saying, what in the heck happened? Now, maybe it would be positive of, Audric Estime made some grand leap or Javonte Williams got back to pre-injury form, but otherwise he should be a starter. And yeah, if Loveland can't come in here and start, that's a major red flag. So, I think with day one and day two picks, you have to find guys that come in and season one, maybe not week one, but preferably week one, they're starters and contributors right out of the gate.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because the other wrinkle I wanted to present to you, he has Ashton Jeanty going 22 in this mock draft. So he has the Broncos passing on Jeanty, who fell in Mel Kiper's mock draft to 20, and everyone got all excited. Matt Miller, who's great for ESPN, thinks that the Broncos will take Loveland over Jeanty. So that is the next layer to this of, man, if Warren's gone, but Jeanty's there at 20 and they go Loveland, that's going to create a lot of chatter in Broncos country.
Yeah, but it's all about, hey, do you think there's a second or third back on your board that'll be there in the second round?
Which in this case is Caleb Johnson, yes.
Right, but there's not a third tight end that if you don't take Loveland, you ain't going to get one, right? So I think they're trying to make sure they check two boxes here. That's part of why this is all a little bit of silly season with this, we don't know what they're going to do in free agency either. Now, the tight end, the free agent class of tight ends, not good. Free agent class of running backs, not particularly good. There are a lot of receivers out there that are interesting that you go, Chris Godwin? Like, that solves the problem. So my expectation in free agency is the Broncos address receiver in free agency, and then with the draft, they do tight end and running back. If it's a deeper running back class, then yeah, you probably do reach a little bit at 20. But again, I think you take the best player. I do. And I think if you look at it and say, hey, we got to patch it together one more year with Nate Atkins and Adam Troutman and Lucas Kroll because we took the best player at 20, and by the time it came around in the second round, there wasn't a tight end worth it. I'm okay with that. You don't have to solve every problem in one offseason. I think reaching is always a mistake. I think you're much better off if you just say, hey, Jeanty's the best player here. We're not going to try and play this, we're not going to try and play chess and who's going to be there later. Just take the best guy.
Okay, but BPA, for me, best player available, makes sense if it's offense. I actually am not on your side with the safety thing. I think the key is providing Bo Nix weapons, and that's why I like this mock, because at least it's offense. I can't justify not giving Bo weapons in the first two rounds, and I understand your point, but I think a lot of Broncos fans would agree with me. They will feel a lot better if they directly help Bo Nix with those two premium picks.
In a perfect world, yeah, I don't disagree with you, but let's just play the hypothetical, right? You get to 20, and there's a safety there who you had rated as the 7th best player in the draft, and there's a running back who you had rated at 27th. I think you're not doing your job if you don't take the safety. And this is a defense that after Thanksgiving was the worst defense in football. In the playoff game, they could not get off the field. What the Bills have the ball, 41 minutes?
42 something. Yeah, it was the least amount of time the Broncos had ever possessed the football in a game.
Yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous. It was a defensive problem. So anybody who thinks they're fine on that side of the ball, I think is delusional. I think they overachieved. I think they were able to get the sum to be greater than the individual parts for 2 or 3 months, but eventually talent wins out. Pat Surtain's a great player. Nick Benito's a great player. Zach Allen, really good player. That's it. I mean, there's nobody else there that's not just a guy. That's not just, okay, you got players like that on every team in the league. So, you hear the JFM people that are just, he's such a great player. Really? There's every team's got a guy like that. Everybody's got a DJ Jones. Everybody's got an Alex Singleton. You got to go get guys that are special, that make plays, and they need help at inside linebacker. They need help at safety. One of the safeties that was in the mock draft, he's a South Carolina kid, and I apologize, I don't remember his name, but the write-up compared him to Derwin James. And Derwin James, like, okay, you can move him down, and he's playing in the box, and he's almost like a middle linebacker. This kid was like 6'3", 217 or something like that. Like, all right, you're almost solving two problems there. If it's that kind of a player, I think you got to draft him. You could talk me into, one or two of the young receivers get a little bit better. I just think a reach based on need, I think is a mistake.
All right, you can read all about it at denversports.com. This was an interesting mock draft for sure. Jake Shapiro also has you covered on the Buffs angle of this, including Shador